We now have a third accuser for Andrew Cuomo. Sort of predicted this a little bit yesterday. Once you got one, you got two, the floodgates might be opening. We might have more than three, but today we certainly know that there's another one. So we have three breaking. A third woman has accused Cuomo of over-the-line behavior. Incredibly, a photographer caught the moment and this look on her face. So we're going to get to that image. But first, let's get a little bit of a background here. We've got Cuomo accused of unwanted advance at a wedding. Says, "Can I kiss you?" Anna Ruch had never met Cuomo before encountering him at a crowded New York City wedding reception September 2019. Her first impression was positive enough. He was working the room, toasting the newlyweds. He came upon Ruch, now 33, thanked him for her kind words about her friends. But what happened next instantly unsettled her. Cuomo put his hand on her bare lower back, she said in an interview on Monday, yesterday. When she removed his hand with her own, she recalled, the governor remarked that she seemed, quote, aggressive and placed his hands on her cheeks. He asked if he could kiss her loudly enough for a friend standing nearby to hear. Miss Ruch was bewildered by the entreaty. She said she pulled away as the governor grew closer. Quote, "I was so confused and shocked and embarrassed," said Miss Ruch, whose recollection was corroborated by the friend. Contemporaneous text messages and photographs from the event. "I turned my head away and didn't have words in that moment." Shaken, Miss Ruch said she later had to ask a friend if Mr. Cuomo's lips had made contact with her face as she pulled away. The governor had kissed her cheek, so now we have physical contact. "It's the act of impunity that strikes me," Miss Ruch said. "I didn't have a choice in the matter. I didn't have a choice in his physical dominance over me at the moment, and that's what infuriates me. And even with what I could do, removing his hand from my lower back, even doing that was not clear enough." Unnerved and baffled, she posed for a photograph afterward. Okay. All right. Once the governor walked away, Miss Ruch's friend approached her with a look of alarm. "It was when my friend looked at me and said, 'Are you okay?' with such genuine concern in her face that I realized how obviously inappropriate it was, not only to me, but to those around me as well." In a text message a day or so later to the friend, Miss Ruch wrote, "I'm so pissed," referring to the governor as this guy with an epithet in that description. After collecting herself that night, she said, she hoped to speak with the governor before he left the reception and confront him about his behavior, but by then she couldn't find him. "I would have rather just said it that night. I wanted to say that wasn't okay." So here's the picture. Right there it is. So there's Cuomo. Anna Ruch said she felt uncomfortable and embarrassed when Mr. Cuomo placed his hands on her face and asked to kiss her. You see this woman over here. She got a little bit of a O face going on there. And this woman in the background too, she's looking going, what the heck is he doing? The background pictures sort of tell you everything. Two women going, that's inappropriate. She looks inappropriate. She looks uncomfortable. Much bigger man, much smaller woman. Apparently she refuted the hand on his back a few times and was not happy about it. Turned her face away when he was going in for the kiss and kisses on the cheek. But then stuck around for a picture. Okay, so we have some reactions from around the interwebs. We got Guy Benson says, "Okay, look, I'm a huge Cuomo critic. I think the nursing home cover-up is the scandal. Previous harassment accusations, also serious because of boss-subordinate dynamics. This one, non-colleague, social setting, ask permission, creepy, handsy, big age gap. Sure. Scandal? And that was my critique yesterday. I mean, I was sort of laughing at the sausage gate that was consuming the media. Lots of calls for investigations. Yesterday, we heard from AOC. We need an investigation. We also heard from Elizabeth Warren. We need an investigation. We have both senators. Chuck Schumer wants an investigation. And the other one, what's her name? She ran for president. She's also in New York. She's calling for action. We saw Nancy Pelosi, House of Representatives. She wants some information on this stuff. We also saw Letitia James. They're appointing a special counsel, a special investigator. They want to go dive into this stuff because it's just enough is enough. And today we have a new person who goes by the name of Kathleen Rice. She is a representative. She says the time has come. The governor must resign. And so I was thinking back in my memory bank of, some other politicians who have traditionally been very handsy. And so, I was thinking about this story yesterday and I'm thinking it was a sausage joke. He was just joking with her about a big sausage to eat at some event. She thought it was funny. He thought it was funny. She holds the big sausage up. They take a selfie with the sausage. And that was, inappropriate behavior. And then he had another conversation with a woman who was an executive assistant who felt like she was sexually harassed. Okay, not going to impugn her feelings, I guess, but she stuck around the office. She got a different job as a health advisor in a different department, stuck around. So obviously it wasn't that horrendous if she still wanted to work for the man. I mean, this is my opinion. I don't know. And then there was another one who, same story. Okay, so now we're on woman number 3 who had hands on her face. Totally I would never do that. I don't touch anybody if I can help it. Anybody. I would never do it. I think it's inappropriate, and it's totally creep show behavior. I don't endorse it, don't support it, not trying to defend it at all. What irritates me the most about this story is the massive double standard that happens here. To me, this whole thing feels like it's just a dog pile. Like the media is just having a field day with this stuff. They're really thrilled that they can go and slam dunk on Cuomo. And I don't like Cuomo. I don't love anything about the man. I don't support almost anything that he's ever done ever in the history of the world. And it's weird for me to kind of come on here and be like, this is a bunch of nonsense thus far. If there's more evidence that comes out, I'm reserving the right to revise my opinion. Okay. If he's pulling Harvey Weinsteins with people or doing, we've seen a lot of this, some really bad stuff come out over this last, 4 or 5 years. But this isn't it. This is just, some egomaniac politician who is touching a bunch of people. We have a record of this. We have other people who have done this in this country, and the media was silent about it. Actually, one of them just got elected to the presidency. Do you remember this image? This was back from 2009. Here's Joe Biden, who is vice president at this time. What is he doing? He's brazenly planting a kiss on the lips of Chula Vista, California Little League usher in 2009. So just an usher just gives her a big fat kiss on the lips. All right. So maybe this is something that he did after he was enshrined in Little League's Hall of Excellence. So Joe Biden, I didn't know that. He's in the Little League Hall of Excellence. That's great. So he's out there kissing people on the lips. I've never been a politician. Is this just something that they do? Here's another one of Joe. He's in a warm embrace with Lisa Murkowski. Yeah, this one's kind of, I would say, mostly innocent. She's given him a hug. They've both been in the Senate for like 175 years, so they know each other very well. They've done a lot of nothing together for a long period of time. This happened during a 2011 congressional swearing in, and so they're getting a little bit, a little close. Okay, a little bit close. I've been working with my business partner for a long time. We don't get anywhere near that. We also have Biden over here. U.S. Navy veteran, so Ruth Severino. This one's, kind of benign, although this woman looks like she's kind of having a little bit of a panic attack right there, but that's okay. So Joe Biden just kind of lunges on her back, one of those things, 2011 Veterans Day Parade. This comes over from the AP. This one came from CQ Roll Call, another one from the AP. These are all summarized on a New York Post story. Then we get to the next one. We've got Biden with another kiss, some other woman who is not his wife, as far as I can tell. And this story says Biden gets around on the campaign trail, also posted from the AP. He kisses another woman on the mouth in this 2012 photo taken at an event in Zanesville, Ohio. All right, so we have some more kissing on the lips. Don't know if he asked permission before doing that or what happened there. Cuomo asked for permission. He didn't. We don't know in this case. Here's another one with Joe. Snuggles up to a woman in a Florida restaurant, 2012 re-election bid. Getting pretty close. Getting pretty close. We got some skin-on-skin contact there. That one is a little too close for me. Then we have this one, which is just very interesting. We have bikers give Biden a side eye as he cozies up to a female motorcycle rider at an Ohio diner during a 2012 campaign cycle. So he's basically straddling her from the back. Very close contact there. This guy's looking at her going, what the hell is happening right now? This is bizarre behavior. This guy's looking over here at this guy going, what are we doing, man? Let's just get on our hogs and ride on out of here. So interesting image. Not much news about this in the media. Here's another one. We got a 2013 swearing in. We have this person who I think used to be a senator, not anymore. He's looking at Uncle Joe, who is getting real close again here. We have some distance, no physical skin-on-skin contact here. So we have a little bit of separation. I would say maybe 2 inches. Her hair is sort of coming out a bit. We have Elizabeth Corker, wife of Senator Bob Corker. Yeah, that's who that was. So Bob Corker's in the background. He's looking at Joe going, bro, that's my wife, dude. What are you doing? You're getting too close. Back up. Congressman looks on in the foreground. He's not, yeah, he's He's looking right at Uncle Joe there. So a little close. Same day, you can tell from the same suits, right? So he's just feeling very handsy this day. Couldn't get enough of the ladies at the 2013 swearing-in ceremony. Here he embraces Senator Tammy Baldwin inside the old Senate chamber. So another senator, very close proximity. We have direct skin-on-skin contact here. In fact, this looks like cheekbone-to-cheekbone conversation on the backside of this. We don't know what Joe Biden is doing with his mouth or where that is. I don't know if he asked permission for that. What's going on here? This is interesting stuff. Then we go over to a 2013 holiday party. He pulls the behind-the-back move on the Hill's Amy Parnes at a holiday party in 2013. This one drew criticism after his photo circulated on Facebook. So this is, he's getting in there. That is not appropriate, folks. When you're in high school and you do that, they separate you. It's not appropriate. 3 feet rule, okay? This is how you dance. 3 feet. Keep it distance. Joe Biden violated the high school rule, and that's not appropriate. And look at her; she doesn't look particularly happy about it either. Probably this is her husband. He's sort of, look at him. He's sort of angling away. He's looking in this direction. He's going, ugh, this is a very uncomfortable smile. That is not natural at all. He's saying, yeah, I'm laughing right now because my wife's getting molested by the vice president, and I'm stuck here in a sandwich between the vice president's wife. While this assault is happening right in front of me, what can I do about it? Nothing. So I'm just going to stand here and smile nervously. Here's another one involving some children. So here's Joe Biden leaning down and giving this young woman a nice little kiss on the forehead. Looks innocent enough, I would say. But Biden plants a kiss on the head of the incoming Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's niece at a 2015 swearing-in ceremony. And then we have this one here. This is the meme that still permeates around the world. I don't think this meme has been made illegal yet. It could be made illegal, but I don't know. At this moment in time, it's not illegal. In another headline-making gesture, Biden puts both hands on Stephanie Carter's shoulders and whispers in her ear as her husband, Ash Carter, is sworn in as the Secretary of Defense. So this guy is just talking to people who are interested in what he has to say because he's going to be the new Secretary of Defense. And then Joe Biden's back here just creeping in her ear. And so this one we have seen a lot. They basically cut him out. They cut her out of the image. And so we have this Uncle Joe meme that they just are pasting on front of everything, in places where it shouldn't be. So what was that, like 10 images that we just went through right there in about, 10 minutes? Pretty quick, pretty easy. Didn't hear much about that during this last election. Not hearing much about that right now. Now, to be fair, Joe has sort of gotten hands off of almost everything. He's not really talking to anybody these days. So he's just kind of kept behind the doors, which is a good thing, because if he's out there, then we see a lot of this type of stuff. But why was the media so mum about this when we've got evidence? This evidence was around for a long time. These things happened in 2013, 14, 15. Where are the recriminations here? Where is the claims that, or the demands that there's an investigation into any of this stuff, or that Joe Biden should resign for this? I mean, this is, none of this is any different. And this is just physical contact. This is not verbal statements. So presumably Joe's got a whole laundry list of those that I just don't have here today. But the point is, if Cuomo deserves to be investigated and resign and potentially prosecuted for crimes, I just read that his latest lawyer was from Harvey Weinstein, the same lawyer who represented Harvey Weinstein and some others, I think Woody Allen, and a high-profile sexual defense attorney, for a sausage conversation, for some inappropriate conversations, for some jokes. If they're all right, then I think we should just apply their same standard. There should be some investigations into Uncle Joe, and we should probably ask him to resign as well. We have Hack Consulting says, how many affidavits have been filed against Cuomo? How much of these are media interviews, reports, and hearsay? So I haven't seen any affidavits. I think that's a 0. And how much of these are media interviews? So all of them, I would say. And I think all of them are. And I think they are all hearsay. So I have not seen any formal evidence about these claims. Now, there is an indication that I think the first woman did talk to the chief counsel and did also talk to, HR or somebody like that. We covered that story yesterday. I can't remember off the top of my head. But if that is true, then there should be some documented proceedings in there, right? You work for the governor's office. You would imagine that they have a sexual harassment policy. They have remedial measures. They have an improvement plan. If this stuff happens, they have a formal written process that they go through in order to deal with it. So I would imagine that it was documented somewhere, but I haven't seen any of it just yet. Next question comes from Jeremy Matrita. Said, I certainly wasn't there and don't condone the alleged behavior, but just about anything can be said about a photograph. Would this picture be considered hearsay or whatever the legal term is for a picture? So not kind of. It's a great question. It kind of depends. So this stuff is tricky. So it depends on what the purpose of the introduction of the evidence is. If the purpose of the picture is to prove that he sexually harassed her, I don't think a judge would let it in for that purpose. If it's to show that he was there at the party, that's a different purpose, right? If he says that I wasn't there, they say, yeah, it was. The purpose of that introduction is to show he was physically there. But if they were going to use that to say this is sexual harassment, well, no, I don't. I think that would be hearsay because it's being admitted to prove the truth of the matter that's being alleged. In this case, that there was sexual harassment, and there are explanations to that, right? He could say, no, I asked for permission. We were having a conversation. He has a whole different interpretation of the event, and so that alone would not be enough, in my opinion, to incriminate him. We have _shades. Says, I don't doubt some or all these women incidents may be true-ish. However, this is a bone to get him out of the nursing home murders, and his fellow Dems are all engaged to assist him since it's also on them. Yeah, so sort of like he's the sacrificial lamb, right? This nursing home thing was a mess. So we don't want to talk about COVID. We don't want to talk about the COVID response. We don't want to blow up this nursing home investigation into a never-ending, spectacle. So we're just gonna get rid of Cuomo, not because of COVID. COVID was great. He did an excellent job on COVID. Keep that narrative going. No, we're going to change gears a little bit and say now it's about his sexual improprieties, which until this point in time I have not seen much of it, honestly. And I was. I always look forward to slam dunking on Cuomo, but I can't do that today because there's just no evidence there. And this might change, right? If we come back a week from now and he's doing the Anthony Weiner on TikTok or something like that, well, then we can reevaluate our thoughts and claims on this story. But we haven't seen that yet. We hear three different women now having conversations about conversations that they didn't like. And that standard is way too low, in my opinion. It requires more than that. All right, we have Bumma Lickett. Says here in Texas, our governor declared 100% open for business. I saw that. Congratulations, Texas. Congratulations. They have no mask mandate, although common sense is applied at all times, which thankfully is still prevalent here in Texas. How will the governor of New York manage to govern New York and reopen his state with all the pressure? Good question. Are people still living in New York? I heard that everybody was fleeing there. I think everybody's leaving California and New York. There's a demographic map. It shows where the population is moving. Arizona is out of control. Everybody's moving here. It's ridiculous. Houses, everything's going through the roof. All right, we have See the Veil says, how is it okay that they can go after Governor Cuomo for inappropriate behavior, but they cannot go after him for covering up his action against seniors with the nursing homes by putting COVID-19 patients in nursing homes? Seriously, this is somehow justice. Yeah, it's just, it's a media shift. So I think that, Ma pointed this out yesterday, in fact, on the show. Said, no, they covered it. So I think maybe that they did cover it, but they're just waiting for that door to close, and they're opening up another one very quickly. I think that's the only explanation. I can't think of another explanation. Why is this such a big story for the last 2 or 3 days? I go on the news. I want to talk about interesting things. We have a sausage video that we have to talk about yesterday. Okay. We have Hack Consulting says, I disavow the hypotheticals alleged against Cuomo. I defend Cuomo and believe he is innocent. Well, there you go. You should be a defense attorney, Hack Consulting. That's a pretty provocative stand, isn't it? Yeah, these are just conversations. Now, I know they didn't like them. I know that they were uncomfortable, but is that sexual harassment? Does that warrant an investigation for the attorney general? Did anything that you have heard from these 3 women warrant an investigation from an attorney general? I have not heard a single thing. Not one. Jen McClellan says, how much weight do these, quote, borderline allegations have? Do there have to be 5 more or 20 for a conviction? Well, there needs to be something more than this. There needs to be some evidence. Right now, it's the closest things that could be maybe criminal would be he did actually have a physical kiss with somebody. Maybe. And there were some disputes between them, and she had moved, but she stayed in the same office. And so, is that a crime? Or was this miscommunication? Was this sexual harassment? I don't know. But we need more evidence. This is my point. Look, I'm not trying to defend Cuomo. I think he's a creep show. I think that he's inappropriate. He's an egomaniac, just like all of the other politicians are. I'm not trying to excuse any of his conduct at all, not even a little bit. And if that is something that you're gleaning from this conversation, that is not, let me correct that right away. But my issue here is, what is the line? What is the standard for prosecuting somebody in a court of law or in the court of public opinion? Right now, we just heard from Ruch is her last name, and she's got a picture that looks creepy, and she's got a conversation that she had where somebody asked for permission, she said no, and that was the end of it. Put a hand on the back. She didn't like it, but stuck around for a picture after the fact. Now that it's becoming a national story, boom, there she is, pops up. Me too. Okay. We need more than that in our society. We need more than just mere words and allegations months later, sometimes years later. All right, we have NY Renal MD says, you would need a 5-hour show just to show the cringeworthy pics of Biden touching children. Yeah, I didn't clip all of them. There's a lot more where that came from. And it was just swept under the rug along with all the Hunter Biden stuff. Nobody wants to talk about it when it's their candidate. So my question is, why is Andrew Cuomo not their candidate anymore? We saw this major just sycophants in the media over this last year, really talking about, oh my gosh, Cuomo's doing these press conferences. Gosh, this is so regal. He's so in charge. Write a book, Andrew. Going on all the shows, just kind of playing patty cake with everybody in the media. So what happened? Why are they just throwing him under the bus now? If they really care about standards, if they really care about women, if they really care about Me Too movement, if the language and the physical touches are so inappropriate, apply that same standard to the rest of the politicians in your party, because you're not doing it. And it's a double standard that is reprehensible. And Cuomo's going to get the brunt of this. That's fine. Whatever. It's Cuomo. Like, I'm not going to shed a tear over that guy. But I am concerned about the standards and about the media reporting, and I don't like when there are two of them, one for the people they like and one for the people that they don't like, because at some point we're going to end up in the bad category. And I want the same rules to apply across the board, right? How would I want to be treated? If some woman somewhere said I said something inappropriate sometime 10 years ago, I want to be skewered in the court of public opinion for that? No, I don't. And I don't want anybody else to either. You, Cuomo, anybody. Now, if there is concrete evidence that they can prove in a court of law, great. Look what happened with Weinstein, Harvey, right? He's done, gone, because there's hard evidence about that case. But there isn't any here. And if that changes, I'm happy to come on here and modify my take on it. But we got to look at the evidence, and that doesn't exist right now. Hack Consulting says, just like yesterday, I made a post in regard to S.H. Cuomo. I made a new post regarding the Coof debacle. What is that? The state took subconscious offense to the federal investigation, leading the administration to act like erection frogs when they ended up on a route of malfeasance and not properly checking their numbers or policies. All right, well, I'm going to have to look at your post there, Hack, because there's a lot of fun words in that statement. I don't know what the Coof debacle is or erection frogs, but I'm interested in learning more about both of those. We have Dr. Renal MD from New York says, speaking of high school, people have been expelled for universities for just accusations. Biden never had to answer for any of this. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, look, people in this country, men in particular, they get skewered over these accusations. I see it firsthand on a daily basis. I've seen and represented people where this is just speaking in broad strokes, generalizing a lot here. These are stereotypes, but they exist for a reason. It's typically the men who are charged. The allegations are against the men made by women. And every time I hear believe all women, I just go, are you living in reality? Come to my office for like a day. I'll show you how this works. I got to get client consent, and I really can't do that. So, don't take me up on that offer. But my point here is there are a lot of women who say certain things that are not true, and they do it for a number of different reasons. And men do it too. Men are not exempt from this stuff. It just happens to be one direction, because the police, when they show up to any of these disputes, both sides are lobbing insults at each other. She did this. He did that. He's responsible. She's responsible. Who broke the bowl? He did. No, she did. Okay. The cops just say, I don't want to hear it. Guess who's going to jail? The guy is. That's just how it works. So that's some nice male privilege right there. Men, they always go to jail. 99 out of 100 times. Very rarely does the woman go to jail, and it's usually when it's very clear that she was the instigator. And most of the time, wake up the next morning, they come into an attorney's office, they get out of jail, they all realize they all said a bunch of BS that was not true at all. Neither one of them. But it's all written in the reports, and it's all documented. It was two people in a heated moment, lobbing insults at each other, making accusations that just aren't true. And so people's minds change and their thoughts evolve, and people will create narratives that are not accurate. 30 days later, she might have just woken up and said, I'm just so sick of all these men catcalling me out on the streets. This has been a repeated situation. And back in it just starts lining them up, right? Creating her own narrative about this systemic sexual harassment and oppression that has been going on her whole life, when in reality, maybe that's not so accurate. Or maybe it is. Okay, I think Cuomo's a creep, but we have to make sure that the standards are set, because we're talking about very important issues here. Cuomo or not. Croc1 Alpha says the meme where he is kissing his daughter on the lips is banned from Facebook. I got a 3-day ban posting it. Kissing his daughter on the lips. All right. So Maz in the house says, let me switch over here. What sort of evidence is not considered material to an alleged charge? I think this is a good education question. Oh, Ma, that is a very broad question. So when you're talking broad strokes with evidence, one of the first things that you want to ask yourself is it relevant to the accusation? Then if it's relevant, then you have a lot of other sort of foundational, we spend basically, I think it's a year. I think it's a year or one semester or a year in evidence. I mean, talking about all the rules of evidence. So once something is relevant, then we start asking questions. Okay, is this more probative than it is prejudicial? Are we going to admit this evidence into court? And so it's such a broad question that I could talk, for days about it. And I can't really answer it unless you're more specific about what specific type of evidence. But I think here, what we have are allegations. We have some evidence, I would say, very little evidence as far as I can tell. We have some allegations in the forms of statements, which even by themselves, I'm not sure that they cross that line of sexual harassment or criminality, to be sure. We have 3 different claims that mostly are stemming around conversations that took place, some physical touch, I think in 2 of them, one with hands around the head, and then one with a hand on the back, and then one with an actual kiss on the lips. So you could interpret those as being assault charges, right? And that would essentially be all that you would need. You would need these women to come into court and testify. Their allegations alone are not evidence, but they would have to come into court and testify. That would be evidence. They are witnesses. They are victims, allegedly, and their testimony would be the evidence. But right now, these are just interviews, and I haven't seen much more, right? We haven't seen any. Think about just some of the other cases that we've seen. With Anthony Weiner, we saw text messages. There were actually pictures of his genitals flying around out there that we knew that he sent over to a 14-year-old. Okay, he went to prison for that. Weinstein, same type of stuff. All these criminal allegations. He's in prison for the rest of his life over it because there's more there. Now, this might just be the tip of the iceberg. I don't know. There may be more stuff that is coming down the pike, but but at this point in time, this evidence, if you're a prosecutor, you're looking at it, you don't have a case. They're going to start investigating it to try to make one, but the media is already convicting this guy and saying he's got to resign, he's got to be removed from office over stuff that I just don't think, I'm sure a lot of people disagree with me on this and think I may be being chauvinistic or anti-women, but I'm not at all. I'm just saying that, we have to have a standard. I certainly do not believe all women. You can take that one to the bank. I don't believe all people at all. I don't believe all anybody. Because people lie. And I've known that from experience. And so anybody who just goes out there and paints with broad strokes that we're just going to believe all people for anything, I think is being naive, and they're not living in the real world. We have Jeremy Matrita says, Rush always pointed out political distraction stories for what they are. I think Hack Consulting is onto something. So I actually like this take, and I hadn't thought about this on my own. This is why I love this show so much, is because I'm sort of getting real-time feedback from people. I couldn't put a pin in why I thought or why this was happening to Cuomo. Maybe to cover up the nursing home stuff. Maybe to mute his presence on the national stage. Maybe because AOC wants to run for something or she wants to be the next governor, or somebody else wants to run for governor. They're tired of Cuomo. Who knows? I don't know. But I actually like that idea. Maybe they're trying to puff up this one bad thing to hide another bad thing, or to place less emphasis on that other bad thing. Hack Consulting says, early Christians used to kiss each other on the mouth. It was described in the letters in the Bible. However, I am an American and not a Greek or a Jew or anything else. Maybe a little Japanese one day if I get a citizenship there. As for, quote, I should be a criminal defense attorney. Thanks. I'm learning well from the best. That the best would include you, you humble guy. Oh, Hack. You little sweetie, you. Thank you so much for saying that. You know, I think it's a great point that, you know, there are different cultural norms that exist in the world, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. I like that, actually. I think culture is a great thing, and we want more of it, not less sort of, a dilution of culture around this country, which it sort of feels like we're going. And I'm not saying what Andrew Cuomo did was sort of, you know, early Christian tradition. I don't think it was that at all. But you have to understand that people are operating from different premises, from different contexts. For some people, you know, a kiss on the cheek or something like that. You know, I've been around Europeans. I've been to Europe. Everybody kissing on the cheeks. Okay, well, that's a little bit weird for me as an American, but that's all right. We'll do that. Right. And I've been to other parts of the world where they do things differently. And that is sort of an example on the macro scale, on a global scale. But even within the United States, people have different experiences and different traditions. Not every single human interaction is racist, okay, just because somebody said something. Not every single dialogue that you have with somebody is sexual harassment. Not everything I do, everywhere I step, every breath I take is just stemming from white privilege just because I'm existing on this planet. We can all live our lives, and there's going to be some times that you bump into people in the world. We talked about this in law school. It's called sort of the crowded world theory. Okay. You can't wrap yourself in bubble wrap everywhere you go and expect never to be offended, never to bump into somebody, never to drop something on the subway, never to get injured, never to be offended. Okay. Men are going to be provocative and cross boundaries. Women have to traditionally deal with some of that stuff. I'm not excusing it. It's inappropriate. I don't behave that way. I would not want my sons to behave that way. But we have to understand that we live in a world where this type of stuff happens. And not every time that something happens, does it amount to something that is heinous, criminal, that should result in an AG investigating you or being canceled. I mean, the standards are so, everybody's walking on eggshells right now. Until we see more from the Cuomo stuff, I just think it's just a big show that's largely irrelevant. Liberty or Death says, just curious, where did you go to law school? So I went to law school. It's at a school called Phoenix School of Law. They're not around anymore. They changed their name into Arizona Summit Law School, and they're also not around anymore. So I typically don't talk about that just because it's not around anymore. I'll tell you this, though, Liberty or Death, you're probably maybe the fifth person who's ever asked me about that. Most people just don't ask about it because they just don't care. We have Hack Consulting says, Coof is COVID. Erection frogs is something similar to what YouTube doesn't want you to talk about. Oh, okay. I got it. Essentially, I was providing a defense for COVID debacle of Cuomo where they cannot change or not. I want them to change, though, and stop making mistakes. So Coof. All right. So Coof, got that. Erection frogs. What do we need for the Second Amendment there, Hack? Throw that in the chat. What are we talking about? Do you like my boom boom sticks? Do you like that? We got election frogs. Lots of frogs in 2020, and we have boom boom sticks going around. All right, so all right, we've got Feisty Lady says Brittany Gosney. She has two other children that were with her at the park. Depending on the ages of those children, can either side use statements, etc., as possible premeditation and intent? Can Brittany, as their mother, refuse to allow them to give statements? Ooh, good questions, Feisty Lady. So let's break those down. She's got two other children. Depending on the age of those children, can either side use statements as to possible premeditation and intent? Yeah, so it's a good question. So it's a lot of it's going to depend on their age, and I think that yes, they will probably. It sort of depends on how this case goes. If she's putting up a fight on this, and this case is looking like it's going to go to trial, then they actually may want to bring those children in as witnesses. Now, normally that's sort of a big no-no. You want to leave children out of it. Even children as, I would say is, 14, 15. The courts are very, very hesitant to bring young people into the proceedings because of the nature of the proceedings. Extremely volatile, massive amounts of stress and anxiety, even for lawyers, even for people, even for judges who've been doing it for a long period of time. You still go into a courtroom, there's a little bit of reverence you feel, a certain amount of awe that exists, and you just want to connect. You want to sort of understand that if you are bringing children into that environment, it may literally cause damage to them for the rest of their lives. So you want to be very cognizant about that, and the courts are. They just don't like to bring them in unnecessarily. So if it gets to the point, let's say, for example, Brittany, they offer her a plea deal. They say, yeah, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. Take this deal. Otherwise, we're going to be seeking the death penalty. She says, yep, I'll take it. That's the end of that, right? We don't need to hear from the children. They don't need to get involved. But if, let's say, Brittany goes through, she wants to bring this case to trial. Her defense attorneys are arguing no intent. Therefore, that murder charge shouldn't stick because it wasn't purposeful. Then they may want to bring in the children. They may want to get permission from the court. What the court would do would appoint essentially what's called a guardian ad litem, sort of counsel for the children, who's going to interface with the court. So the children are just not on their own. They would have their own attorney that's appointed by the courts to help them through that process. And so you can see there are a lot of interplaying issues here. But Brittany, as their mother, refused to allow them to give statements. Probably not. So I think what they'll probably try to do is maybe deem her to be unfit and take custody of the children away from her, probably very quickly. Maybe, I don't practice family law or spend much time on these issues, but maybe sever parental rights, especially if she's going to be in custody for years pending the outcome of the case. So those underage children are going to have to be dealt with. They're going to have to find them homes, resources, security, and safety. So a lot of issues there. It could go a number of different ways, but can Brittany refuse to allow them to give statements? Probably not, just based on the custody thing and the fact that she's probably going to lose her right to have any physical custody or legal guardianship over her children anymore. And the other statements, I think they'll be able to get whatever they want out of those kids. And a lot of it is going to depend on the age of those children. So, we'll see. Great questions, though. We have Onion says, hey, Robert, I am new here. Good work. I want to check my ideas here. This is all part of the Great Reset agenda. The criminals will run the world and we will be happy. Also, the narrative is crafted to divide the country or drive it to civil war. Thoughts? Great question, Onion. Very good one, actually. And I wanted to let me tell you about this. So on Clubhouse, there are a lot of different apps, rooms that you can go into. Clubhouse is an iPhone, iOS only app, and I've been poking around on a little bit. I hosted a couple rooms last week, and I'm trying to decide whether I like it or not. Last week, I was very into it. Now I'm sort of not so much, but there are some interesting conversations taking place there. One of the conversations came from a room that I was in where we were talking about woke language. There's a lot of these woke rooms. And what I'm seeing on Clubhouse is that people are sort of dividing into two different camps. And what's interesting about Clubhouse is you have this sort of digital stage and they bring people up onto the stage. So you have a stage and you have an audience. And so what they'll do is they'll set a topic of the room. In this room that I was in, they were talking about wokeism and about why people talk a certain way and why this culture is sort of developing throughout the app. And let me give an example of this. So I was in a different room where they were talking about, I don't know, some sort of woke issues that were happening. And it was a very weird room to be in because all of the people who were on the stage communicating with one another, they're all chatting back and forth via voice chat. They're all talking in like literally a language that I don't really understand. And they were communicating in a way that felt very unnatural to me. They were saying things like, hold on, I have to pause you right there. They were giving trigger warnings. They were saying, I'm going to have to, I can't even remember what they were saying, but something about I have to go and be assertive to protect the space of somebody else. So in other words, one person would speak up and say, I have to go protect the space for Karen. Because Karen doesn't have the ability to speak up for herself. So somebody else is going to dive in and speak up for her and said that I have to clear out space in this room for her to speak and, trigger warnings and all sorts of just weird stuff going on in there. And so people on Clubhouse are talking about this. Well, why are they doing this? Why are they communicating in this way? And some people say, well, it's based out of compassion. It's sort of a generation that doesn't want people to feel triggered. They don't want to be offensive to people. They know they've been sort of indoctrinated in our schools to think that Words are dangerous. Words can hurt people, and that leads to trigger warnings, and that leads to the whole culture that you see over there. And I kind of get that. I kind of understand it, but it didn't feel like it was right. I went into a different room and somebody brought up a very interesting perspective. I haven't really fleshed out this idea. I don't know much about it, but they introduced a new concept called an accelerationist that I had not heard of before. What is an accelerationist? Well, it's somebody who wants radical, massive change in this country. And so in order to achieve that change, what do you have to do? Well, you can't operate in the current environment because the current environment has rules that are set up to perpetuate the system. We're going to perpetuate capitalism. We're going to perpetuate the yahoos, knuckleheads that we have in Congress. And it's just going to be basically the same. Unless we can make some radical changes at a more foundational level that will cause people to say, well, I don't like the system anymore. We're going to change it. And so the allegation here was that many of the people who are sort of in alignment with this woke culture or this cancel culture or this anti-free speech, this dangerous information, this we're only going to allow stuff that we want allowed, right? We're going to ban books. We're going to get rid of Dr. Seuss. We're going to change Mr. Potato Head. All of these cultural things. We're going to fight over bathrooms. We're going to fight over locker rooms. We're going to fight over all sorts of the cultural stuff. And if you have an opinion about it, you're not even allowed to discuss it. Why? Because it's triggering to somebody. Or if you're speaking, it's because you're speaking from a position that is less valid or not valid at all. This is white privilege. This is systemic racism. This is the institutional patriarchy. Okay, these are disqualifying words and disqualifying concepts that prevent you from joining in on the conversation. And anytime you try to join in on that conversation, they just say, well, that's your white privilege. And if you respond and say, no, it's not. I actually have a valid point based in facts, based in rationality. This is a multivariate problem. It's not just white people. It's happening across the board. Cops are bad in general. They say, that's your white privilege. So it's self-reinforcing. So every time you speak out, it just reinforces itself. Well, why is that? And how does that work structurally? It's accelerationist. It is to cause people to feel like they're not being heard, like they're not a part of democracy anymore, like America has failed them. And what does that lead to? What's the next logical extension of that? An overthrow of the system. It's revolution. It's dramatic political change in this country. And so by design, and many of the people who are engaged in woke conversation or this woke concept where everything gets canceled that they don't like, they control the narrative. Anything that you say that disagrees with their agenda is because of some other external factor that invalidates your ability to participate in the dialogue. They want that to happen because it's going to usher in that new era. Interesting idea. Hadn't heard about that. But if you're sort of somebody who likes to play around with the idea that maybe there are some, puppet masters who are kind of moving things around, the idea here that they want to put in place some fuel to trigger that upcoming wave sounds like an interesting thought to me. Curious what you think, iOnion. Great question to end the show on. Thank you for that. Those questions, of course, came over from locals.com. We got a lot of great supporters over there. I want to thank a few of them. We got S. Crutcher. We got Sarah Smothers. Big thanks to Ma Fox. Big thanks to Faith Joy. We got Pinky 2 in the house. Sach, Cody Bear. We got Osak. We got C. Wolf. Dr. EMB. We have Jen McClellan we just saw. On My Knees. We've got Lead Shed. We got Savdi. We've got Clock Doc Want to Know in the house. We have Lana 12. All these people are over at Locals. We also got Gust Click. We got Bumma Lickit. Saw him today. We have CA Java Bean. We've got Jax 842 in the house. D Nice. And then we got one new person signed up yesterday. We got LT13. Welcome to the program, my friend. And we also had John M16 and then Simwala, Carl, TOS Forever, Ruler Law, and then we have Linda 913. So I want to thank everybody for joining us over there on locals.com. It's a separate platform. It's at locals.com/watching the watchers, but we were able to sort of build a little bit more of a freer community over there. YouTube says that we can't talk about certain things. We've got to play by their rules. It's their playground. And so we're trying to comply, but there are other conversations that can happen elsewhere offline on a different platform that I think is more suitable for the hard issues that are maybe not so woke that you might have to comply with in some of these different mediums. So I would appreciate your support over there. Thank you to those of you who are already over there. It means the world to us. Thanks for supporting the show. Other great things you can get if you head over. Copy of my book. It's free. Download a PDF over there. You can also get a copy of the slides that we saw today. Get a copy of the impeachment party templates. Get a copy of the existence system documents, as well as any links and conversation. And the real reason to go over there, great people. A lot of awesome people over there. And so, you know where to go. Locals.com/watchingthewatchers. Lastly, but not leastly, I am a criminal defense attorney right there at the R&R Law Group, where, we help a lot of good people who have been charged with crimes. We help them get through the system. We want to make sure that they come out whole without being destroyed by the justice system. And we do a good job at that. So if you know anybody in the state of Arizona that has been charged with a crime, things like misdemeanors, domestic violence, assault, criminal damage, urinating in public, these things happen. So if you happen to know somebody who needs some help, we'd be honored and humbled if you sent them our way. We offer free case evaluations. We'll make sure that they leave our office in a better position than when they found us. And we would be honored and humbled if you sent people our way. We'll take good care of them. So that's it for me, everybody. I want to thank you for being a part of the program today. We'll be right back here, same time, same place tomorrow, 5 p.m. Arizona time, 4 p.m. in California, 6 p.m. Central in Texas, 7 p.m. out there on the East Coast. Everybody have a very lovely night. Sleep well. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.